Hey guys, it's Ryan, and lately I've been having some merry Megazord madness. I'll hold my hands up and admit that I've just kept making purchases lately, and as a follow-up to my 2020 purchases so far video, I thought I'd talk about them and how I've got into some of the seasons that I've just never had before. Yeah, I've definitely gone a bit crazy. So I've made what I would consider 10 pretty significant Megazord purchases just since my last 2020 buys video. I say Megazord themed as not all 10 of them are Megazords themselves, as I also bought a baddie, a base, not to be confused with the other base that actually can become a Megazord, and a blaster. And what an overpriced blaster it was. I know it's going to be quite a while before I can get around to reviewing them all chronologically, so I thought today I would just share the 10 and talk about them in order of how happy I am having made the purchase and kind of how much fun they are. So here's my top 10 Megazord Madness buys. Number 10, the Turbo Garage from Power Rangers Turbo. So some of you may remember this from my Power Rangers Regrets video, and it's something that I always kind of wish that I had. I remember seeing it in Toys R Us when it was released and thinking, oh, that's kind of cool, I've never seen a Zord playset before. And that was true, they hadn't made a Zord playset before, at least not in that ilk. Not one where you could take your deluxe Zords and kind of slot them in as though that's their base when not in use. Turbo, obviously leaning into its car vehicle theme, used the garage as an opportunity to kind of pretend that it was more of a Zord repair shop. Some of you may also remember it was the only way to get the Larigo figure. Yeah, I can't really see that thing having sold very well on its own. It is kind of cool to have, but I think it's more of a display piece now than anything else. It's not a lot of fun. Something that I think is really impressive is how well thought out this thing is for the Spring Zords. All of the Turbo Megazord and Robo Racers pieces are accounted for. There's a place for everything here. Well, once you get to Artillotron and the Turbo Rescue Megazord though, things are less good. There's no real place for Turbo Rescue Megazord, and the Megazord dock hooks just don't seem to want to fit it. They actually fit the Turbo Megazord far better. The Rescue Zords are even too big for their equivalent colours parking spaces, and even if you shuffle them around, you can't actually get all 5 to fit. A shame about stickers too, they changed something quite crucial from the Japanese version. What was the lovely emblem for the season has been turned into a Power Rangers Turbo logo. When in the in-show continuity have they ever had anything that had a Power Rangers logo on? Yeah, they probably put the team behind the lightning bolt stickers on this one. Definitely glad to have it and that I didn't overpay for it. Definitely don't fall into that trap on eBay. It's fine for what it is, just lots of plastic pieces that slot together, but if it's between this and some other Power Rangers playset, I'm probably going to say go for one of the others, even if it's one of the action figure ones. Number 9, Serpentera. Who remembers this then from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 2? This thing in the show was huge, and the toy is no little thing either, but it's definitely been scaled down from the TV show, where one of its feet was basically the size of Tor the Shuttle Zord, the Ultra Zord from the season. I think it's going to need a little bit of photo trickery to make that scale work for my Instagram, probably a Power Rangergram. Yeah, this one should have been in my Power Rangers Regrets video. I can't believe I missed this. This was effectively the 4th Zord release from Season 2. With Serpentera, it kind of is what it is, one great long green dragon. Dwarfing of course the Red Dragon Thunderzord from the same toy line, and even the Dragon Zord from the year before. Number 8, the Dino Stegazord from Power Rangers Dino Thunder, or Season 12. So as some of you who follow my Instagram will know, I'm not really all that keen on this thing. I think the proportions are really screwy. It's got this massive bulbous chest, obviously with these Stegosaurus spikes and feet on the back. You've got these very thin pin-like legs, but then they go back really far. And then for arms, it's just got the rather feeble feet from the White Dragozord. All in all, I think this thing is a mess. I know it has its fans out there, and it is cool that the evil White Ranger kind of gets his own Megazord once he gets a second Dinozord involved, but yeah, it's really not one for me. The only reason I got it was for the combination with a Megazord that appears further down the list, and might as well show it now. It's the Thundersaurus Megazord in its sort of Dino Rage mode. I think that's what the 5-inch figure was called, though correct me, I don't know if it was called that on the show. It basically wears the Stegazord like a backpack, akin to the Ninja Mega Falcon Zord or the Winged Mega Voyager. So yeah, a look we've seen time and again. This time though, I can't really vouch for the connection. It's held on by just one clip, though the instructions allude to a separate piece, my nemesis, which obviously the original owner of this toy lost. So you're supposed to be able to secure that to the Thundersaurus Megazord before clipping onto the White Dragazord. Yeah, I don't have it. You don't technically need it. That one clip is enough to take the weight and keep it there, but it's just worth knowing that you'll constantly be having to correct it because it's always lopsided. This one ranks as far down the list as it does because on its own it's not great. It's probably better in Zord mode. I almost think Bandai America knew this toy wasn't great and that's why they included the third Zord, unlike the Japanese counterpart, and that gives you the buzzsaw action, and that, to be honest, is pretty cool. Number 7, Delta Megazord from Power Rangers SPD, Season 13. So you might have clocked I've really been venturing into those Disney seasons that I just never bought. I think now I'm noticing how good they were, like really well put together Megazords, interesting themes, some cool tricks and surprises that we'd not actually seen before. I think at the time, other than being too old, I was happy to dismiss them thinking, well, you know, SPD, that's kind of just another spin on the Lightspeed Rescue theme. Dino Thunder was obviously just another spin on the Mighty Morphin, but kind of felt more by way of Wild Force, at least in terms of how the finished Megazords looked. But Hasbro's kind of apparent commitment to keeping the SPD team coming in the Lightning collection has made me take a second look at them, and it's actually encouraged me to venture out and get the Bandai Zords of them, because even if Hasbro were to go there, I don't really see them doing the entire season's Zord line. So yeah, Delta Megazord is kind of where it all starts. I've had a taste of this before from Gokaija and the Pat Striker Zord, what became the Delta Runner in our Super Mega Force. So I can finally appreciate the overall look that they tried to replicate, at least in terms of the Delta Runner 1 Zord. And the light up feature is really cool. I really like how they've synchronized the lights. It looks like the light in one of the legs on mine has kind of gone. I did buy a replacement Zord, but that seems to have its own problems. It doesn't seem to be able to play all the sounds. So yeah, maybe there was just issues with the electronics of this thing. It is like 1.5 decades old, so you kind of have to cut it some slack. I am going to try and see if I can fuse them together, or at least correct this problem somehow by the time we get to the SPD proper chronological reviews, but as you might be able to work out, that's way down the road at the moment. I think I've got time. This thing also kind of reminds me of Turbo. It seems like the Zords don't really transform all that much, but the other reason I'm going to give it some credit is I really like how this thing has 3 accessories that are part of the Megazord. That is really cool, and I definitely see another RoboCop reference in the fact that it's got a blaster holstered in its leg. Overall, really cool idea for a Megazord with excellent posability. Number 6, the Lifeforce Megazord from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, Season 8. So, whoever predicted this one? Least of all me. I honestly never thought I'd buy this thing. It's one of those Sentai only releases, so the US never actually got a release of it, despite the fact that the Megazord did actually appear in, was it 2 or 3 episodes of Lightspeed Rescue? Whereas in Japan, where it did get a release, it only appeared in 1, which was the finale. Weird. Obviously, it's just a black and gold version of what to us is the Lightspeed Solar Zord combination, but in the show it was termed its own Megazord, the 5th Megazord of the season actually. So it is kind of strange that in the show it was just always fully assembled in this random warehouse hangar, kind of like how the Beast X Ultra Zord is deployed in Beast Morphers, but obviously this toy kind of confirms that it was always capable of separating into its individual component Zords. Random, I know. Yeah, I did kind of break my cardinal rule of not buying black and gold editions for this one. The reason, of course, being because it is screen accurate, it does appear on the show. It is very much a nice to have. It is something that you have to handle extremely carefully, or at least feel like you do. Something very cool that I'm sure we'll pick up next in the Lightspeed Retro review series is that this one has a bit more diecast on, so your Pyro Rescue 1 shouldn't have quite as many problems as the American release, which unfortunately just used plastic for those shoulder joints. It is a really nice Zord, only appearing here on the list because other than colour, it doesn't really do anything different to the one I've already got. I did actually consider buying the Super Mini Pla version. I really admire the fact that they've finally been able to separate the thing's legs for that, and the dynamic posability that's possible with it is just unrivaled. The only reasons that I didn't go that route is obviously the difficulty in getting hold of it in the first place, the price for what it is kind of expensive, and of course the sizing. So if I was to put the Super Mini Pla Lifeforce Megazord beside my deluxe Bandai Lightspeed Rescue Zords, the scale would be completely out, and so I went this way instead. Number 5, the Thundersaurus Megazord from Power Rangers Dino Thunder Season 12. So the second of 2 Dino Thunder releases on this list, and as you know, Dino Thunder, not really ever a season I was that enamoured by the Zords of. I have to say, the triple Dino team up, where it once again actually appeared on screen, made me revisit the idea, and I kind of feel like when I've got the Dino Fury Megazord, yeah, I'm going to want all 4. So it's kind of to my obvious delight how surprised and impressed I am by this thing. While I still don't think the Zord aesthetic is completely for me, I really appreciate how much detail there is on these things. And I think we've noticed it's just one of those things that has fallen by the wayside in more recent years, and this will age me. They really don't make them like they used to. They have so much detail and patterning and different types of material on. This thing's even got some die cast. It's just really well made, and the fact that it's got electronics, this drill action, just adds to the fun. And more so than that it actually detaches and becomes the sword, much like the Delta Megazord that followed it chronologically. This idea of weapons being part of the Megazord I'm really a fan of. Also, because of how the T-Rex transforms, posability on this thing is insane. The legs and waist will pretty much move however you want them to, and I think that's really impressive. Number 4, Omega Megazord from Power Rangers SPD. So yeah, a second Sentai inclusion on this list, only because I found that it was actually cheaper to get than the US release. I don't know how many of this thing they made, but yeah, you may find the same, that it's actually cheaper to just get someone's old Japanese version than it is the Bandai America re-release. And the benefit of that this time is that some of the silver painted pieces are actually nicely chromed. Now, some of you may be a little surprised on why this thing is as high up the list as it is, considering it's a bit of an ugly duckling really. The Megazord mode I think is actually kind of laughable, especially those 2 fists and that giant wheel protruding out the centre of its chest. And that helmet that kind of reminds me of Robert Patrick's T-1000 on the motorcycle from Terminator 2. But hold on guys, there's more to it than that this time. This thing is as high up the list as it is because it offers not 1, but 2 really cool combinations with the Delta Megazord. Might be wrong, I'll put text on the screen if I am, but the last time I can remember a 6 Ranger Zord combining with the main Megazord in 2 completely different ways was way back with the original Dragon Zord in Season 1. With this one, they've come up with the new and completely unique aesthetic of the main Megazord being able to ride this sword like a motorcycle. That is just too ludicrous not to buy. While it's obviously not perfect, it is really quite good, and although reaching the sound effect button requires quite a bit of coordination and timing, I don't think you can fail to be charmed by this thing. It's really cool, really different, and is kind of helping me understand why SPD is such a fan favourite. The second look is the Delta Max Megazord combination, and I really like this. This takes what is initially a really tiny Megazord and bulks him up to a more imposing size and stature. While I don't think the arms quite work for me, they seem a little over long and the girl Zords are kind of slightly too far over the edge, I really like how every piece is accounted for. The sound effects still work perfectly and can be seen through this translucent new chest piece, kind of reminding me of the Astro Delta combo. And the fact that it's able to use its motorcycle exhaust as kind of propulsion in its finishing attack is just, again, something cool that we'd not seen. Number 3, Delta Command Megazord from Power Rangers SPD. Yep, you know the season by now. So I guess 13 was not unlucky for some. Yeah, this thing's a building. It's a building that turns into a Megazord. It's also a building that becomes a carrier Zord, or a deployment Zord, for 5 of the Rangers Zords. Like, what was the brief when they were designing the look and the mecha and the Zords for this season? It's just stuff that you kind of end up doing a double take at and thinking, really? But it amazingly really works. I really enjoy the transformation. I think the Megazord mode looks imposing, and as you can see is at scale with Serpentera, and probably akin to some of the bigger mech we've seen over the years like Pyramidus and the Super Train. I really like this one. It shouldn't work, but it does. And the fact that you see it multiple times in basically every episode of the show in its transition shots, no wonder this thing is actually really quite affordable to get hold of. They must have made a ton of them. SPD guys, I get it now. It's taken a while, but I get it. Number 2, Titan Megazord from Power Rangers Mystic Force Season 14. So this one was actually the first purchase of my 10 Megazord madness. Again, I really like this one. It's a Megazord with, I don't even want to say humanoid Zords, but they kind of are. On the surface, it's your regular run-of-the-mill 5-Zord default combining Megazord, but it's got a wizard's hat. Although the Zords are actually Mystic Titans rather than humanoid, if you think about it, this is our first humanoid-style Megazord since Turbo Rescue all the way back in Season 5. It's really weird how long it was between those, and actually, at time of posting, I don't know if we've had one since. This time they've really nailed it, and Turbo Rescue Megazord, if you remember, had the double morphing transforming action. This one forgoes each Zord having a separate morphing mode into giving it a different combined mode, kind of harking back to the original tank mode sort of from the Dino Megazord, and of course the assault mode and sled modes from Power Rangers Season 2 and Wild Force, and even the Omega Crawler from Lightspeed Rescue. Dragon mode is phenomenal. The wingspan is impressive. Every part of this just looks great. I really appreciate this Megazord more now than I ever would have done at the time. This one has a special place in fans' hearts as it was the final full year where Bandai America adapted the Bandai Japan toys without tinkering. From the next season onwards, they start introducing their own molds. Mystic Force is the final year of the show where you can get all the Megazords translated from Japan to America without anything getting messed up too badly on the way. I also really like that 3 of the Mystic Titans have their own weapons, although I wish it was all 5 of them, and that these combine really excellently and solidly to form the Power Sword. The Megazord mode is again a little deep in the chest for my liking, but I think from straight on you can't really tell, and again wizard's hat and wings. I remember at the time when Mystic Force was airing that it seemed a little coincidental because Harry Potter was so popular and that they'd shrunk the Pink Ranger Zord so much and that the 4 remaining colours just so happened to be the Hogwarts house colours. But time and distance away from that, this Megazord is great and I really recommend it. It's also a really fun transformation, one that I think requires quite a bit of skill. And number 1 of my top 10 Megazord Madness buys recently is the Time Flyer set from Power Rangers Time Force Season 9. And I think some of you may know why this is where it is on the list. This is one of those holy grail releases. Much like the Lifeforce Megazord, or rather the DX Black Gold Max Victory Robo, I couldn't exactly put these on my Power Rangers Regrets video because they're not Power Rangers toys, they are Super Sentai exclusive toys. Clever loophole there, I know. So yes, this is something that you'll only ever see a handful of times throughout the year on eBay. And I'm guessing it's because apparently Time Ranger didn't do very well in Japan, so there's fewer of these things that got bought in the first place, coupled with the fact that it's just a ton of tiny little pieces. You'd have to have some pretty conscientious kids looking after all these small parts for the best part of 20 years. So the reason why this is such an amazing pickup is that this is the main weapon for the Time Force Megazord Mode Blue, annoyingly a weapon that you didn't get in the box and that was never made available for Power Rangers. More so than that though, it's the Time Jet, which the 5 Time Force Rangers can ride, and then another amazing part, they then drop off it into their individual cockpits. That's right, the Time Force jets, as some of you will know, have individual cockpits. I think this was a really cool idea, something that we saw replicated in 2017 with the Power Rangers movie toy line. But here, done so much better. It's just a shame that red can only go in backwards, and of course that in America the only way to get hold of the 5 minifigures was by buying 3 separate playsets. And if that wasn't bad enough, you still wouldn't have got the blaster. Very annoyingly, they named one of those playsets the Deluxe Transwarp Megazord playset. A total lie, it wasn't deluxe, it was a micro playset. Japan, of course, got it right. They gave us the deluxe provider space big enough to house and deploy all of the Time Ranger jets, or the Time Force Zords. And this third release kind of closes the book on it. It gives you the 5 Rangers, their jet, which turns into the blaster. I am so pleased to have this thing. The reason why it's top of the list is that it's always been annoying to me that I had 5 empty cockpits on that thing and a Megazord that couldn't perform its finisher. That was just brutal, and naturally it makes you favour Time Force Megazord Mode Red because you actually have a sword and shield for it. Now all these years later, I think kids would have been much happier and kept the Megazord modes much more even if they'd just found a way of releasing this for America. It's a very nice, partially die-cast accessory. It kind of sort of looks a little too big for the Megazord, but it's fine, we're not going there. This is the only one. This is the one you have to get if you want it. You know, due to what people want for this thing, I definitely can't recommend it for all, but if you just absolutely have to finish off your Time Force collection, I think you really need to go for it. So guys, that's my top 10 Megazord Madness purchases lately. Everyone makes dumb decisions, right? Although I will say, everything's a smart decision if you can justify it to yourself. It's actually been a really fun few months picking these up, and I've noticed that as time has gone on, I've actually started to prioritize buying these kind of releases over maybe like pre-ordering Lightning Collection toys. I've just found these Megazords a heap more enjoyable, and despite being as old as they are, far less likely to come with any problems that need resolving, ironically. I think that really says a lot about Bandai, Japan and America, that products that they produced in some cases decades ago are so solid and excellent to use, even now. But if you think about it, none of these releases were ever on the shelf as high-end collector grade stuff. They were just part of their respective regular lines, and yeah, they're amazing. So if any of you kindred spirits out there have a bit of flexible income from the lack of life events this year and a bit more time at home in which you want to be entertained by something, then why not venture into the past and something that you maybe missed out on at the time that might bring you quite a bit of joy now. Guys, thanks for watching this far in. Let me know in the comments, what have you been buying? What would you recommend to others? Is there anything that you wanted to see on this list that maybe isn't here? Obviously, I would recommend watching my now slightly out of date Megazord collection video to see things that weren't ever going to feature on this list anyway. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Do subscribe if you haven't already. It helps tell YouTube that people actually watch and like this kind of stuff. And until the next time, see you later.